The doorbell chimed, a soft, insistent echo through the quiet afternoon. I was in the sunroom, curled up with a book, a mug of Earl Grey steaming beside me. The scent of jasmine from the garden drifted in through the open French doors, a perfect, peaceful moment abruptly shattered. I recognized the nervous, almost hesitant chime, a stark contrast to the imperious banging they usually favored. My stomach clenched. They were here, my in-laws, Eleanor and Robert. I hadn't seen them, not really spoken to them, in 5 years. 5 years since Eleanor's venomous words had sliced through the air like a poisoned dagger, leaving me bleeding and reeling. "You're just a gold digger," she'd hissed, her face contorted, a pretty face who latched onto our son for his future inheritance. The words still burned, even after all this time, a brand on my soul. Now, they stood on my porch, their figures visible through the frosted glass panel beside the door, smaller, stooped, utterly defeated. Robert's once impeccable suit was rumpled, his tie askew. Eleanor, usually a vision of polished granite, looked faded, her carefully coiffed hair a mess, her expensive silk scarf clinging limply to her neck. The sight of them, broken and desperate, sent a dizzying wave through me, a mix of profound vindication, cold satisfaction, and, to my utter confusion, a faint, unwelcome pang of something akin to pity. My perfect life, the one they'd tried so hard to dismantle, stood tall and unblemished around me, a silent testament to their folly. Life with Liam, before his parents' insidious whispers turned into a roar, had been a beautiful tapestry woven with ease and understanding. I had my own life, my own flourishing interior design business, a small but significant inheritance from my grandmother, and a knack for smart investments. I wasn't just comfortable, I was financially independent. I met Liam at a mutual friend's art gallery opening. He was charming, intelligent, and possessed a quiet kindness that immediately drew me in. We bonded over a shared love for obscure independent films and spicy Thai food. Falling in love with him felt like coming home, a warm embrace that settled deep in my bones. His family, at first, seemed welcoming enough. Eleanor, with her sharp wit and even sharper eyes, observed me like a curious specimen, but always with a polite smile plastered on her face. Robert, a retired corporate lawyer, was more reserved, but he'd offer a hearty chuckle at my jokes and inquire about my work with genuine interest. We bought a charming old Victorian house on the outskirts of the city, spending weekends lovingly restoring it, filling it with antique finds and vibrant, custom pieces from my studio. My business grew, referrals pouring in. Liam, an architect, found immense satisfaction in his own projects. Our evenings were filled with laughter, the scent of home-cooked meals, and the easy comfort of two souls perfectly aligned. We were building a life, not just for ourselves, but for a future we both envisioned, a future where stability and happiness were paramount. I thought I had found my forever family, a place where I belonged without question. The first faint tremors started subtly, almost imperceptibly. At family dinners, often held at their grand, impeccably decorated home, Eleanor would start asking increasingly pointed questions. "So, darling," she'd purr, her gaze lingering on the modest diamond pendant Liam had given me, "your little business, does it truly make anything substantial? Or is it more of a delightful hobby?" Robert would chime in, "Yes, most women in your position, dear, tend to gravitate towards more philanthropic endeavors, rather than the hurly-burly of the marketplace." I'd politely explain my client list, my profit margins, the satisfaction I derived from my work, but their eyes would glaze over, a dismissive flick of the wrist ending the conversation. I'd notice their glances lingering on my car, a sensible, well-maintained sedan I'd owned before meeting Liam, and then to the new luxury SUV Liam had bought. There was a shift in their smiles, a tightening around Eleanor's perfectly painted lips, a subtle coolness in Robert's handshake. My gut twisted with unease, a low thrum of discomfort I couldn't quite articulate. Liam, bless his oblivious heart, would always dismiss my worries. "Oh, that's just Mum," he'd say, waving a hand dismissively. "She's always been a bit traditional about women and work. Don't mind her, you know I love what you do." But it wasn't just Eleanor. His Aunt Carol, a distant cousin who was always lurking at these gatherings, would fix me with a knowing, almost pitying look, as if I were a poor, misguided creature stumbling into a trap. The air in their house, once warm and inviting, now felt thin, laced with unspoken judgments. The quiet accusations simmered for months, each veiled comment adding another layer to the thick, suffocating tension. Then came the explosion. It was Christmas Day, a brutal winter storm raging outside, mirroring the storm brewing within the grand dining room. The scent of roasted turkey and mulled wine usually filled the air with warmth, but this year it was acrid, heavy with unspoken resentments. Liam had just announced his intention to invest a significant portion of his bonus into expanding his architecture firm, a move we had discussed for weeks. It was a calculated risk, but one with immense potential for growth, something I fully supported. Eleanor's face, usually a mask of polite disdain, began to crack. "Invest?" she shrilled, her voice cutting through the polite chatter like broken glass. "Liam, darling, you know your father and I had plans for that money. It was meant to secure your future, not to be thrown away on some risky venture." Robert, his face a thundercloud, nodded vigorously. Liam, ever the peacemaker, tried to explain. "Mother, it's not being thrown away. It's a smart business decision, and I've researched it thoroughly with my name." At the mention of my name, Eleanor's eyes snapped to mine, blazing with an unholy fury. She jabbed a perfectly manicured finger at me across the polished mahogany table, her voice rising to a hysterical crescendo that silenced the entire room. You're the reason for this. You've always been after his money, haven't you? Whispering in his ear, pushing him to spend, to risk it all. You're just a gold digger, a pretty face who latched onto our son for his future inheritance. You care nothing for him, only for what he can provide. The words hung in the air, thick and poisoned, coating every surface. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate for escape. The festive cheer evaporated, replaced by a deafening, horrified silence. I could feel every eye on me, every judgment being formed. Liam sat frozen, his face ashen, looking from his mother's enraged face to my own shattered expression. He said nothing, absolutely nothing, for a long, agonizing moment. The silence was louder than any scream. The aftermath was a brutal, drawn-out battle. My face burned, my eyes welled up, but I refused to let the tears fall, not in front of her. "How dare you?" I finally managed, my voice a thin, shaky whisper. "You know nothing about me. Nothing about my life, my work, my finances, or what Liam and I have built together." My husband, finally snapping out of his stupor, stood up, knocking over his wineglass. A crimson stain bloomed on the crisp white tablecloth. "Mother, that's enough. You have no right to say such things." His voice was weak, trembling, barely audible over the roaring in my ears. But it was too late. The damage was done. The other relatives, until then silent spectators, began to murmur. Aunt Carol, predictably, chimed in, "Well, Eleanor, perhaps you were a bit harsh, but one does worry, don't they? Such an independent woman, with such expensive taste." My blood ran cold. The flying monkeys were taking sides, subtly, insidiously. I looked at Liam, pleading with my eyes for him to truly defend me, to shut them down completely. But he just stood there, caught between the mother who birthed him and the wife he claimed to love. The rest of the evening was a blur of strained pleasantries and icy glares. We left early, the heavy flakes of snow feeling like tiny shards of ice against my skin. The drive home was silent, thick with unshed tears and unspoken accusations. When we finally spoke, it was a torrent of raw, unedited pain. I demanded that Liam stand up for me, that he cut the umbilical cord. He struggled, torn, his loyalty split. We argued for days, weeks, the gold digger accusation a toxic phantom haunting our home. It was the hardest period of our marriage, a crucible that nearly broke us. Eventually, I gave him an ultimatum, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. Either you defend me, truly defend me, and set clear boundaries with your family, or I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this, under their constant, baseless attacks. The decision was agonizing, but necessary. For months, we navigated the choppy waters of estrangement. Liam, after much soul-searching and a few therapy sessions that he initially resisted, finally drew a line in the sand. He called his parents, a conversation I wasn't privy to but could hear the raised voices from the other room, his tone firm, resolute. He told them their behavior was unacceptable, that their accusations were lies, and that until they could treat me with respect, they would not be welcome in our lives. The silence that followed was deafening, then the phone slammed down. It was a painful, lonely period. Family holidays were spent just the two of us, or with my side of the family, who had always loved and supported me unconditionally. I poured myself into my work, my business thriving as a distraction from the lingering hurt. I redesigned my studio, taking on larger, more complex projects that demanded my full attention. Liam and I rebuilt our trust, brick by painful brick. We learned to communicate better, to lean on each other, to prioritize our little family unit above all else. My financial independence, once the subtle target of their scorn, became my quiet strength, a reminder that I had never needed anyone else's money, least of all theirs. The sting of Eleanor's words faded, replaced by a quiet sense of dignity and resilience. We grew stronger, our marriage fortified by the fire we'd walked through, emerging on the other side scarred but unbreakable. Years passed, 5 years to be exact, a blur of successful projects, joyous anniversaries, and the serene hum of a life well lived. Liam and I celebrated our 10th anniversary with a trip to Italy, a dream we had held since our early dating days. We had built our dream home, a modern marvel nestled among ancient trees, a testament to Liam's architectural genius and my interior design flair. My business had expanded, taking on commercial clients and even winning a few prestigious awards. We were thriving, individually and together. The in-laws were a distant memory, a cautionary tale, an occasional awkward question from a well-meaning relative who didn't know the full story. Then the whispers started, soft at first, like leaves rustling in a far-off wind. Eleanor and Robert, once so financially secure, were facing difficulties. Bad investments, someone murmured at a distant cousin's funeral. Lavish spending, someone else whispered. They always lived beyond their means, flaunting what they didn't really have. The family fortune they had so proudly guarded, the one they feared I was after, was apparently dwindling, then gone. Their grand house, the one filled with so many painful memories for me, was sold, not quietly, but with a public listing, a sign of urgent financial distress. Robert's luxury car, a gleaming status symbol, was repossessed. The irony tasted like ash and honey on my tongue. The gold digger, the one they had scorned, was flourishing, while they, the supposed guardians of wealth, had squandered it all. And then, the doorbell chimed. That soft, insistent echo, shattering the peaceful afternoon. It was them, standing on my porch, their figures visible through the frosted glass. Eleanor and Robert, not the imperious, judgmental figures I remembered, but stooped, small, utterly defeated. Eleanor's once vibrant purple silk scarf was limp, faded, her expensive handbag clutched like a lifeline. Robert, his shoulders slumped, wouldn't meet my gaze. I opened the door, a tiny gust of wind carrying the scent of jasmine and the unspoken history between us. Liam isn't home, I said, my voice carefully neutral, betraying none of the turmoil churning inside me. Eleanor's eyes, once so sharp and critical, were filled with a raw, desperate plea. We know, she whispered, her voice hoarse, unlike the imperious tone I remembered. We came to see you, my name. Robert finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his face etched with shame. We need help. We have nowhere else to go. Everything's gone. We heard about your success, your business. His voice trailed off, thick with humiliation. The gold digger, the woman they had disparaged, was now their last, desperate hope. My mind reeled. They were broke, homeless, and they were looking to asterisk me, the woman they had accused of chasing their money, for salvation. The air hung heavy with the weight of their past words, their present desperation, and my own bewildering internal conflict. Do I extend a hand to the people who tried to break me, who hurled vile accusations, who almost cost me my marriage? Or do I let them face the consequences of their own pride and folly, a cold, hard justice that I have earned? What would you do, Reddit?